Hi, good morning, and welcome to Brunch with Brian this morning. And today I want to reiterate our challenge. So hopefully you are coming on a regular basis. You see me every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. If not live, you tune in later and get all this awesome training and motivation. So remember what we're doing this weekend and over this, it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All right. Now, hopefully you can get this done by Saturday night. And so you can have Sunday off. So it's a 20 call challenge. And remember, there's two kinds of calls. There's opening calls and closing calls. Mostly the script you're using for closing calls is called the seller financing closing call script. The three main closing call scripts you'll use in this business, in the creative financing world, is the seller financing closing call, subject to closing call, and sandwich lease purchase closing call. Those are the main three strategies. There's some other strategies, and there's scripts for those too. So there's a whole section in your what to say manual called advanced strategies. And that has things like seller subordination, where we call that blended funding, where if you need to give a seller a huge down payment, you get a new first mortgage and pay that, and then the seller carries back a second mortgage. So we used to turn down deals, and now we have a really good lender that we work with who can do those first mortgages, and then the seller carries a second. So that don't turn a deal down just because a seller wants a huge down payment if they're willing to take monthly payments. And so you should come to us and it will help you structure a blended funding deal. All right, so there's closing calls, and again, mostly for us, 90% of those are the seller financing closing call. The time you would use a subject to closing call is when they owe 90% or maybe 85% of what the house is worth or more. So it's when their mortgage is the LTV, as they say, loan to value, is over like 85 to 90%. Then you would ask, will you sell for what you owe on it? And that's a subject to deal if they say yes to that. Now, the other way to do it is a sandwich lease purchase, and there's 7 reasons why to do a sandwich lease purchase. The main ones are if closing costs are very high in your state and you don't want to incur closing costs. The second reason is if the seller wants a big down payment for seller financing, but if you do a sandwich lease purchase, if you just lease purchase it, they're okay with like first and last months and a damage deposit. So it's a way to reduce your upfront costs. Basically, not as much of a big down payment. And then the third reason is if the seller is very concerned about the due on sale clause, that they're all worried that once the title transfers, the mortgage company is going to call the loan due, which I kind of chuckle because it doesn't really happen. But that's, in fact, just as a side tip, guys, if you're reading in the dictionary, remember you get that dictionary as part of the what to say and what to do system. So if you're looking through the dictionary, look at the due on sale clause section. What is the one? There's training in these sections. It's not just all definitions. So I plugged in some important training. So what's the one reason that people get the loan, that there's ever an issue with the mortgage company with this loan calling due thing? It's when the seller goes to the mortgage company and tells them, okay, I'm selling my house and they're going to start making the mortgage payments. So what do I have to do with you? Okay. So that just means that you did not take care of that in advance. So that's why you, on your closing at your deal meeting, you bring out the lender change of address form. Okay, that's a really important thing. When they sign that, you're going to say, okay, now you're signing this. You understand that I'll be talking to your mortgage company from now on. If they ever call you or ever have a question or ever send you anything, just go ahead and forward it to me. Don't even worry about talking to them in the future. Okay, and then you get the authorization to release information, and you get you also get the lender change of address form. Okay, so I'm focused on those are your closing calls. Now, hopefully, if you have leads that you can get into the closing calls, that's great. Okay, and normally I jump right into a closing call. If I'm doing an opening call, I will transition right into the closing call as soon as they say they're open to taking monthly payments. As soon as I get that okay, that they're at least not a hard no on monthly payments, I'm going to transition. Okay, so, but you're going to start with the opening call. So what are your primary opening calls? And this is the way I know you can do this. I know you can conquer the 20 deal challenge because I know you can make opening calls. So what are the opening calls that you make? Again, we have our FSBO opening call script. That's the best script ever for calling FSBOs. It's got all the right verbiage that's worked right in there. It's not just some blank form that, there's a mortgage box there. Well, how do you ask for mortgage information? You just got this box staring at you that says first mortgage, second mortgage. It doesn't have any script in there on most forms. So that's why we incorporated the scripts into the forms. So if you look at our opening call scripts, the form is the script. All right, so that's the great thing about those. So use those great scripts, the FSBO call script. Also, what else you're going to use? The listing realtor calling script. So we talked about working with realtors last week. So I know you could do 20 calls to realtors over this weekend. Now I do, I don't want to be flexible on this. I actually want you to talk to 20 people. Okay. I mean, these are completed calls. Even if it's a 2-minute call and they say, I would never do that, you talk to somebody who's a potential prospect. Okay. So that's the key, is that these 20 calls have to go through. You can't leave 20 messages and say, I made my 20 calls today. All right. So I want you to actually talk to these people. So you got Friday and Saturday. You could do it all on Saturday, and you have Sunday if you need it. But I really want you to really commit to this. And I want you to tell me about how great you did on Monday. And so a big part of this is the opening calls. You can call FSBOs until you run out of FSBOs in your area. And then you can call FSBOs in other areas. And if you are picking other areas, don't forget that 1% rule. Okay. If you start thinking, gee, maybe I should develop another portfolio, another farm area like the Wolves have. Okay. Because we're in Indiana, we're in Kentucky, we're in Minnesota, we're in Detroit, and we're in Phoenix. That's our main areas that we're in. So if you guys, there's good target markets in other areas. I talk about Cleveland. If you're around Cleveland, contact me, and let's do some business in Cleveland. Remember, with the Wolves Deal Club, we'll actually come up with money to help you close deals, and we will, we'll have a stake in the deal then, obviously. But if you can't get a deal closed, get us involved, and we will make sure that deal gets closed. We'll be on the phone, and we'll, really get involved. So we talked about our Wolves Deal Club last week on this day, on Friday. So if you can get involved with that, that's, so highly recommended, because that's really a transition into doing a bunch of deals. So I want you to start with the FSBO opening calls. And then when you're targeting these other areas using that 1% rule, remember, that's rent equals, I should type it in there. Caleb, could you type this in there for me? It's great to see you. Great to see Caleb here. So guys, the formula is rent equals 1% plus of value. Okay, so it's a pretty simple formula, and you can check it out on Zillow. Again, you can look at a Zillow Zestimate, the Zestimate on a property, and then you can scroll down on the right side and look at what the rental Zestimate says. And then you can get a pretty good idea, is that 1% or not? Now, this mostly applies, and you should write this down, guys, 80,000 to about 150,000. Once you get over 150,000, because that's $1,500 a month on a $150,000 house, sometimes you can get $2,000 for a $200,000 house, but not in a lot of areas. Okay, so that's where the breaking point pretty much is. Anything from about 80 to 150. Anything under 80, I want you to shoot for like 1.5% value. Okay, so this is an important formula if you are trying to evaluate a new farm area. Okay, and it doesn't have to be a beautiful suburb. It can be in the city, like Chicago or something, and that's where you're going to find the properties that nice people would still want to live in, but that are, not necessarily where you'd want to live. It's not, it's not that far from maybe a little bit of rougher areas. Okay, so you're looking for that magical spot, that sweet spot. And so but you can always call FSBOs, because you can go on Zillow now and you can find FSBOs in any city. So that's what's great. So except Wisconsin. I don't know what happened in Wisconsin, but somehow all the realtors got together and I don't know what happened exactly, but if anybody knows more about this, if you live in Wisconsin and you have read more about this than I know, let me know. but all I know is that somehow the realtors got together in Wisconsin at some point and got Zillow to not take FSBO listings anymore. So now I haven't checked recently, so this might have changed. Zillow is changing all the time. But it's possible that if you are in Wisconsin, that you can't find FSBOs on Zillow. Now, there's a lot of other sources, aren't there? I mean, Craigslist, FSBO.com, ForSaleByOwner.com, a lot of other sources. And in fact, that maybe opens up some possibilities because people can't just drop their house on Zillow and it sells faster. So maybe that will help you actually find better deals in Wisconsin because of that. All right, now you're making your calls, picking your area, using the 1% rule, and then you can call a lot of FSBOs in some areas. There's more FSBOs in some areas than others, obviously. And then when you're done calling your FSBOs, that's when you can move into your listing realtors. There's usually about 10 times more listings in any area than there are FSBOs. And that's when you also start calling landlords. Remember, you go under houses for rent. Houses for rent. So I know if you call 10 FSBOs and 10 landlords, remember you got that landlord opening call script that's so good. And so that's written out just like the FSBO script, where the script is built into the form. So if you haven't tried calling a landlord yet, this would be the weekend to do it. Okay. And now remember, I want you to have two scripts there. There's the landlord script and there's the property manager script. So if sometimes when you call a landlord, a house for rent, a property manager will pick up. So that's why it's important to have that script sitting there too. So because a property manager can be just as good as a landlord or better, because they work with a whole bunch of landlords. So if you can establish some credibility with a property manager, that is gold, potentially gold. I know a lot of our students actually get deals, straight from property managers. Anytime they get a landlord who's a little bit sick and tired of it, and sometimes they want to purge their whole portfolio. They actually just want to divest, as they say. And that's a great one, because that's actually, we're working a deal in Detroit right now where this guy has 24 properties. So we're looking at a lot of properties, and we have to evaluate them, and we can cherry pick them. He's not making us do a bulk deal where we have to buy all 22, but he's got 20. It's 22, I think, is the number that he's got. And so we've got them all on an Excel spreadsheet, but you can tell some things from an Excel spreadsheet, and you can tell some things from a Zillow listing. These things aren't even on Zillow. And so you can tell some things. If you have more complicated, advanced systems, maybe you can get a little bit more information on properties, but somebody's got to go out to the house at some point. And maybe it's the seller. We've done deals where the seller walked through with a video camera, with his phone on a video, and we could, glean enough information to go ahead with the purchase, and then find somebody to go over and look at it before the final closing. Whether it's a realtor, whether you can always find boots on the ground in another city as a realtor. There's a lot of realtors who have some time on their hands and would gladly, for a paycheck once in a while, would work with you and be your boots on the ground and even help you manage your properties at a distance. So don't forget that if you're looking at properties at a distance. So that's your main opening calls. There's one other opening call that's called the off-market property owner opening call. And that's when you're driving for dollars and find some distressed house that's sitting there, not advertised, just vacant, obviously. And if you find that, then you got to do some kind of skip trace. You got to figure out, you can start with the white pages. People don't even remember the white pages, but you can go on the internet white pages and you can find that's like the first step in skip tracing. Sometimes you don't have to pay skip tracing. Now we have a skip tracing service that we use that is $0.10 per skip trace. So it's not so expensive. It used to be $25. And now we can do it for $0.10. So it's pretty cheap to do skip traces. And once you find somebody, when you go through that extra step of skip tracing, that's where a lot of people won't do it, and so if you're doing it, that's taking that extra step, that's going that extra mile, and that's where you get the deals a lot of times. All right, so 20 calls, that's our goal. 20 calls by Sunday, okay, by Sunday night, and then come back on Monday and tell me how you guys did. Great to see you, Caleb. That was awesome. And it's so great to see everybody who's at the training last week. Yes, guys, that's the formula. Rent equals 1% of value, 1% plus of value. So could be, you know, anything. Now we've got properties in Detroit that are like 2%ers. So that's great. That's a good rule of thumb. Now, if you are at 200 or above, guys, and you know, that's where you can't really go out and get new financing. You really need seller financing. But there is, we can do loans on rental loans on these kind of properties if you do need financing. So good morning. Hey, how you doing, Jennifer? So great, guys. Great to see you today. I will see you back on Monday. So this is exciting. Have a great weekend. Complete the 20 call challenge. Let's do an affirmation. Let's say, I will make, let's say, I'll complete the 20 calls. I'll do 20 calls. Let's say that. I'll do 20 calls. Okay. That's an easy one. So that's our affirmation. I'll do 20 calls 3 times on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I'll do 20 calls. I'll do 20 calls. I'll do 20 calls. Yes. 20 calls, guys. Calls are the main KPI, key performance indicator, that leads to success in real estate investing. All right, let's do 3 deep breaths. Nice deep breath in. Let it out. Smile on your face. Another deep breath in. Feels good. Get that air filling up your lungs. One more. Always with a big smile. Sometimes it even stretches out your spine a little bit when you're filling up those lungs. And when you let it go, relax your shoulders, your neck. Awesome. So we're going to have an awesome weekend. I will see you back on Monday. And until then, keep expecting success, getting awesome training from the Wolf Couple. Hey, Isabel. Good to see you. Getting awesome training from the Wolf Couple. Oh, yes. You are going to do the challenge. Awesome. And I will see you guys back on Monday with your reports. I'm really excited. Okay. See you then. Have a great weekend. Keep expecting success and taking action.